Welcome everyone, welcome to the not-so-crack theories of Black Butler.
Thank you all for coming. Mine's just quiet.
You can be loud.
So, welcome to the not-so-crack theories of Black Butler. We should probably go ahead and introduce ourselves then.
Out of character?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Kelley Frank. I teach English 1102 at the University of West Georgia.
Sorry. I go there, English major. You're
Yeah,
awesome.
represent. I have a master's in composition and rhetoric, and with a minor focus in creative writing. So literature is my jam.
My name is Marlena Frank, and I work as a web developer over at Georgia Tech. But in my off time, I am a fantasy and horror author as well.
And I'm Areya when I'm not Ciel, and I have a BFA in film and television with a minor in sound design from SCAD. So my background's in movie making, and I just love discussing Black Butler and literature in general, in person and online. So doing panels like this fits right in with that.
And last year at the AWA, we came here and we were like, why aren't there any Black Butler panels? So we were like, man, we're gonna make one.
There was one.
There was one?
Yeah,
There was
no,
a
the
mystery.
cafe.
There was a
Yeah,
mystery
we had the
dinner.
murder mystery.
No, there was
Yeah, I
actually
went there.
a Black
I
Butler
enjoyed that.
panel
That was fun.
on Sunday.
There wasn't like a bunch, so we're
Like
hoping
discussion
there's
panels.
more.
Oh yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
like this. No.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to go through some different theories and talk about Black Butler from a not just from a fan perspective, but also kind of
Analyzing it as we go.
So we'll get into some of that.
Get right into it.
So, just to be aware, there are spoilers for the manga and all of the animes and the musicals as well. So, and the musicals are amazing. If you have not experienced those, I do recommend you go find them.
Yes, you might have heard some of the musical playing as you came in.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so pop quiz. I'm a teacher, so I'm gonna do that. What genre is Black Butler?
Some shout
Yes.
Manga.
Yes, in the back with the red sleeves. That's all. Yes.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay, it's, I want to say it's
Shonen?
Shonen.
Okay.
I think it's technically shonen.
It is.
Way in the back, at the very back row, I think. What's up?
Supernatural?
Supernatural. Okay. I see a red sleeve over here.
Crime?
Crime.
That's a good one.
It's manga. Hey, it's not wrong.
It's not wrong.
Wouldn't it be under suspense?
That's
Suspense.
a good one too.
Yeah, because there is a lot of that.
Any
Yeah.
others?
Huh?
Yeah, you.
Oh, kind of like a Shota? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah?
Wouldn't it be a little comedy?
Yeah, definitely comedy.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of comedy.
There is that. Well, nobody's wrong. That's the thing, is that we're all approaching it from a different perspective, and that's kind of what makes Black Butler such a neat fandom, because everybody can enjoy it regardless of what you particularly come in here with. So we just we just sat around and we're like, gosh, we all think of Black Butler as having a lot of different genres. So one of the things that we did was we just kind of came up with a list, and we were just like, okay, so it fits in a fantasy. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. If you've read the Weston arc, you probably saw the Harry Potter influence.
Lots of Harry Potter influences there.
Yeah. The classic literature, you've got the Faustian contract. So you've got that contract with the demon and what's going to happen. You've got horror. There's a lot of references to a lot of different horror works. There's references to Vincent Price movies. There's references to H.R. Giger, who was one of the designers for a lot of the Alien movies. If you haven't seen those, they got Sigourney Weaver in them. Very good. There's mystery. Arthur Conan Doyle is an actual character. So, I mean, and Ciel's always solving mysteries. The British peerage system, which is something that sounds really fancy, but I mean, Ciel is an earl, and we keep learning more about his place in the world and the social hierarchy and all of that. He does have to answer to the queen to some extent. Christian ideals, he keeps talking about sins and hell, and we have an actual angel in season 1. So we have this. These things are apparently real in this. So we have a lot of that, but then we also have Japanese legends and lore. So we're like, okay, so where are we standing in terms of the belief system that's within this world? We've got paranormal romance, shipping folks, and then we've got, of course, just manga conventions. Like shonen and stuff like that. And if you read a lot of manga, you see a lot of standard conventions that show up a lot, sort of tropes and these kind of things pop up in Black Butler often.
So whenever you read about a particular genre, you go in there with certain expectations. You parts of the plot you can kind of guess, and you go in with certain expectations
about what you're going to read. So you're like, let's say you're approaching this as a murder mystery, you're expecting it to be a murder mystery throughout, and when it's not, you're kind of like, okay, where's the mystery? And then if you're expecting it to be a shonen, then you're just like, okay, where's the sexy stuff? And so you're waiting for these things because that's the stuff that you want to see, because that's what you're coming here for. And so she kind of touches on a lot of things. And so when you have crack theories that may or may not be true, depending on where Yana Toboso, our beloved author, decides to go, a lot of those theories draw on those various expectations that we as readers have. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, Yana plays this to her advantage in borrowing from all these different influences and genres, because she doesn't really stick to any particular culture or tradition, and so it keeps you guessing and enriches the mystery.
Like whenever you're told that they're going to be werewolves, and you're not sure if they're going to be werewolves or not. You're not quite sure. It's based all on perspective.
Somebody's still bitter.
A little bit.
Not quite either, yeah.
So let's start with Ciel's crack theories, which is, no surprise, the largest section that we have.
Well, he is our star.
Yes, yes.
So of course he's going to have all these crack theories involving him.
The first is the big one.
Oh, yes. The 2 Ciel theories, probably the most controversial, arguably. If you're unfamiliar with the theory, this theory kind of started around 2010, maybe even sooner, of people discussing this, where we saw images of a second boy who looked remarkably like Ciel in the manga, and we saw discrepancies and flashbacks where we see him being stabbed on an altar, and then we see flashbacks of him never leaving the cage, and all of these different bits of evidence that seem to contradict each other. But the 2 Ciel's theory corrects or it addresses those discrepancies.
It tries to fill in the gaps.
Fills in the
Right,
gaps,
and it is by far the biggest, it's been gaining more and more traction, the more information that Yana drips out, because you can't tell everything, she just drips out little bits and pieces.
It's little crumbs, and
Yeah.
there are many splits of this theory, so we could be here all day just talking about the different splits, but the one that's most popular is the one that says that Ciel had a twin brother, and that they were raised together, and they were kidnapped together and sold together, and it was actually Ciel's older twin, who was the real Ciel, who was stabbed on the altar, and our Ciel, the one we know, never left the cage, and he is the surviving Earl, and there's a theory that he took on his twin's identity.
And if you'd like to see more about this and have a more full explanation, we did a full panel of it at DragonCon just a few weeks back. You can go to our website at kuronerds.wordpress.com to view the YouTube video that we did for that.
But some of the things that come up with the 2 Ciel theory in terms of crack theories include suggesting that maybe Ciel's twin is a Shinigami.
We're still alive.
Is he a bizarre doll?
Very possible.
Undertaker, what are you doing?
No one knows.
Why you guys
Is it
always
real? Is it a
causing
dream?
trouble?
We don't know.
These
We
have
don't know.
spawned, the 2 Ciel theory has spawned many crack theories like these, and we're starting to think that they may not be so crack after all.
But we're not sure. So until then we have to call them crack. Hence.
Yeah.
Hence.
Until we have proof. Complete proof.
Yana food.
Yes.
Just confirm it already, Yana.
Yes. And then we have bits and pieces like Ciel's family tree that's given out, where convenient speech bubbles cover any sort of, further detail, like Cedric Ross, his birth and death year. We don't know what that might be.
Ciel's grandfather.
Well, and then you also have, I'm going to use the pointer, but you also have Claudia Phantomhive, who was her parent. Who are these people, and why was the family name passed down on the female line instead of the male line?
Right.
It wasn't something that happened in London at the time. That's not how the British peerage system works. So Yana knows that, so what is she doing?
That has an interesting story behind it, we're sure.
And you'll also notice that the branch off of Vincent's name at the bottom looks like it cuts off into two areas, not just one name like you would expect, implying that, of course,
Yeah.
Ciel has a sibling.
I know, that's
All
how I
connected.
felt.
But Undertaker's involvement is very complex, we know that, but we're not sure what his motivations are, we're not sure what he's trying to do. He doesn't kill Sebastian on the Campania when he had the obvious chance to. He could have easily killed him at that point, but he does not. Was he searching for something? Was he wanting to frighten Sebastian? We don't know. What's his history with the underworld? How close was he to Vincent Phantomhive? And at one point in the manga, he actually cries over him, remembering his loss. Why is that? Was it, the loss of like a child? Or, some distant relation?
Or a boyfriend.
Or a boyfriend. That's very possible.
Which leads us to Undertaker and Vincent.
Yes. Their relationship is very close, but we're not sure on what terms it's close.
Check out the fan art, and Undertaker often sits like on the edge of Vincent's chair. And does that mean that he's like his right hand, or does that mean that he's his boyfriend?
We don't know. We don't know. It's all symbolism. It's all symbolism without giving anything away. So, but he's clearly distraught about Vincent's death, to the point that he cries in Dietrich's, office. And it's like he's never cried before in the manga until that point.
This panel right here is from the Demon 6 arc. It was kind of a side story that came out last year around this time.
I think so.
Yeah, it was last year. And so, yeah, in that, Vincent is remembered as one of the people who was voted like one of the most beloved characters, but he's dead. So you see Undertaker bring his portrait to this gathering of all the top most beloved characters, and he is very emotional about it.
Right.
Look, Ciel, you get to sit with your dad and things like that. It's a little bittersweet. We're not sure if he's messing with him or if he's being sentimental, because Undertaker's hard to read.
And then we have Vincent's mom, Claudia, who was a watchdog herself, which is quite unusual.
Was she your girlfriend?
Who knows? Who knows?
Will you tell us?
No.
Is this Jerry Springer?
It might be at this rate.
Right, but we know that she is Ciel's grandmother, and that the Phantomhive name passed down from her.
Right.
Awkwardly.
Yes, which doesn't necessarily make sense unless there were special circumstances. Undertaker has extreme distaste for Queen Victoria. Why is that? He often says he's refusing the Queen's money. No explanation ever given, and Ciel never asks any questions about it. To him, that's how he's always been.
One other thing he has in common with Harry Potter.
Yeah, never ask questions. I don't know why.
Don't ask questions in a mystery.
Yeah. He's often shown rubbing Claudia's locket often as well, and especially whenever he's talking about advice he's given out to Phantomhives. Was he trying to give Claudia advice and she ignored it too? There's no telling.
At the end of the circus arc, while he's watching the place burn, he's talking about how Ciel doesn't listen to his advice. Most people don't, and he's rubbing Claudia's locket thoughtfully. So we have this idea that maybe there's some connection between Claudia and Undertaker, maybe a promise or something. We don't know.
There's no telling. There's no telling at this point. Is Ciel related to a Shinigami? And what would that mean if he was related to Undertaker or some other Shinigami? At one point in the manga, Ciel is able to see that Shinigami are in a tree. And
This is in the German art.
right, and Sebastian didn't even know they were there until Ciel's the one who points it out. He just suddenly gets this ability to see them, and it's like, where did this come from?
And I know this is a little odd because there's always people dying on Phantomhive Estate. So
Right.
you would think he'd notice Ronald standing in the corner, or Grell just chilling, eating food out of the fridge. I don't know. But you don't think he would notice Shinigami just hanging around his house since there's always people trying to attack him and getting murdered on the properties. So there's folks dying, but he's just now noticed this.
Right, right. And Rutger even says at one point that maybe it's because he's close to death. What does that mean? That too is ambiguous. Is it because, his death is imminent? But that was like multiple chapters ago, a whole arc ago actually. So apparently it wasn't that imminent. So, lots of more vagueness in trying to interpret this.
And we're wondering if he has always been able to see Shinigami, whether or not they wanted to be seen, or if something happened recently that made it so that he could see Shinigami. So that's also ambiguous.
More questions about Ciel being related to a Shinigami is Frances Mitford. She is a curious character who's often overlooked in these kinds of theories. She has incredible strength and at one point is able to even catch Sebastian whenever he's trying to dart out of a room.
Yeah, Sebastian's trying to avoid being bothered by her, so he tries to leave and then she suddenly sweeps up behind him and grabs his arm. And he's surprised that she's able to get the drop on him. He even says that out loud. Wow, I didn't know you could move so fast. That's interesting. So she's able to catch a demon off guard.
Yeah, pretty much only her and Undertaker can take Sebastian off guard.
Yeah, I think Grell does this once as well.
Yes.
She even says at one point, she doesn't like Sebastian's face. And it's interesting because she does.
But everybody loves Sebastian's face.
But she can't put into words why she doesn't like Sebastian's face. And more recently in the manga, Ciel has started staring at Sebastian like, your face looks weird suddenly.
Is there something on my face? Yeah, and there's
Right.
kind of like this just look thing going on between Ciel and Sebastian, and with Frances as well, and you're just wondering like, okay, why are they looking at each other like that? And they don't say anything, and he's just like, is there something on my face? And it cuts to something else.
Never explained, of course.
Not yet.
Not yet.
A
Not
minor
yet.
hint to something.
Are you related to a Shinigami, Ciel?
It's kind of looking more and more like that.
So Lizzie, your cousin who you're engaged to, awkward. But whatever, Victorian era.
Normal for the time.
I mean, Edgar Allan Poe can do it, why not? But Lizzie has this unnatural strength and speed. She tries to hold it back. She eventually is able to take on Sebastian in a fight. She takes on Grell in a fight. She aims a sword at Grell, and Grell's like, nope, not doing this. Not even doing it.
Nope, not even touching this girl.
It just leaves.
Yep.
So there's, if
I think Lizzie might be related to a Shinigami, not me.
We are related to this.
your cousin.
Cousins.
So, yeah.
But she has incredible strength, and even Sebastian says, wow, your skills are very good. If I wasn't a demon, I probably wouldn't be alive right now.
Right.
So we do have to wonder, is her strength just really, really powerful, or is there something supernatural about it? Because she is very young.
Right.
Right, she's only 14, and Sebastian basically in this fight has to tap into some of his demon powers in order to disable her.
He actually avoids her in the exact same way that he avoids William in the circus arc, doing that back then, which is kind of interesting. So, anyway, yeah.
And now we get to Sebastian crack theories.
Yay, Bassy time! Everyone loves Sebastian. Hello, darling.
Oh dear.
It's like we summoned you. Speaking of the devil. Well, there are lots of those out there. I'm distracted.
Focus, dearie, focus. So with Sebastian, we have to question, what is a demon anyway?
What is a demon anyway?
Sebastian.
So we have to try to figure out how Sebastian sees himself, because he's not going to tell us, this is what a demon is, let me explain it to you and everything. So we have to figure it out based on how he describes himself, how he reacts to things around him. He states that he is a demon and a butler. We're not sure what he's motivated by. Is it hunger? Is it boredom? He could have killed Ciel a long time ago. Why is he still washing clothes and drawing baths?
Because he enjoys it.
You say that. I don't know, man.
He enjoys the Butler game.
Okay, well, why is he still putting up with Bard and Mayrin and Finny?
Because we need them at the Phantomhive household.
Somehow
to
I
defend the
think
man.
they drive him insane. So we have to wonder, why is he still doing this? So let's see. First of all, we have to figure out how is Yana defining a demon? And that seems really obvious, but when you look at all kinds of different lore, you have to remember that Yana is approaching this as a Japanese woman from a Japanese culture who's reading about British culture from the 1800s and incorporating it into a manga geared at Japanese audiences, but also at a global audience.
International audience.
So she's gathering information, writing about a place that she only recently traveled to for the first time. A lot of the information she's getting has to be translated for her because she herself is still struggling with English. So we have a lot of interesting things that she could be drawing on.
She just went to London this year and was very excited about
She
it.
did. She had such a good time. But so in the ancient Greek, the concept of the demon is a spirit. It can be good or evil. It's just a spirit that exists. Doesn't necessarily ever have had to be a human, just a spirit. This is very similar to the Japanese lore of sort of a nature spirit or some kind of a spirit that has to do with animals. So Sebastian may be like a crow demon or something. There's a lot of manga that draw on this. So Inuyasha, for example, and things like that.
Right.
And then in the Christian sense, if he is a demon, then he's associated with all of these levels of hell and Lucifer, and he's a fallen angel of some sort. So we have very different views. So depending on what she's writing from and what our audience expects changes our perspective of him as a demon. Does that make sense? There's a lot of different ways we can approach it. So then we have to ask, like, how are demons created or born? So
The big questions.
Huh?
How are demons made?
Where do demons come
Where do
from?
demons come from?
Oh dear. But like, okay, so were they former humans or are they fallen angels? Why do they prey on souls? So one of the things is Ciel is in London at this time, so he's probably an Anglican Christian.
Right.
So you'll see him often talk to Sebastian as though Sebastian is some kind of a filthy creature that enjoys reveling and destroying things. And then we see Sebastian reflect on how he doesn't really enjoy these things, but he'll do it because Ciel expects it of him. So we don't know if Ciel is imposing his beliefs onto Sebastian and Sebastian's behaving according to what Ciel expects. We don't know what's happening here. We don't really know what Sebastian is entirely.
And it's really, well, whenever he gets serious in the manga, like in this scene here, he becomes like this black inky mass without shape or form, and Ciel hears him talking in his mind.
And he grabs him with shadowy, like, tentacle.
Right. So it's very abstract, and of course
terrifying.
that doesn't give us any answers of what he is either, but it also makes you wonder how important is the contract.
Right. There was a bit of a dispute as to who breached the contract here and why Sebastian was deciding to possibly consume Ciel right at this moment because he
Ciel was
got bored,
showing weakness.
because Ciel was not himself. He was quite
Ciel
ill.
got exposed to mustard gas.
Yeah.
He kind of had a reason to be not feeling good.
Right,
But
and
not from Sebastian's perspective.
No, Sebastian did not wait very long before basically giving up on him and deciding, okay, that's it, I'm taking you right now. So he hadn't fulfilled his revenge, but Sebastian argues, oh, you're giving up on your revenge, even though Ciel's just sick
Yeah.
at this moment. So he kind of jumps jumps a little bit on Ciel, and even though Ciel's not giving up on his revenge, he seems to be bypassing that. So what is the contract really? What's holding him
And
from taking him?
going to today to more recent chapters, at one point Rabat even calls Sebastian a collapsar, calling him a black hole that sucks in the light of others, which is pretty terrible, and Sebastian seems offended and hurt by this description.
Especially when people start insulting him and telling him how horrible he is. Look at that face, look at that
This is the most hurt we've ever seen Sebastian, and so it makes quite an impact.
Why does he feel hurt by these accusations? If he was a demon who reveled in, doing all these evil deeds, why does being called out bother him so much, clearly?
And we know he likes to be admired. We saw him in the circus arc, just living it up, showing off all
Right.
his skills, and he loves
Competing
raising the
with William.
crowds and everything, competing with Williams. So we can understand a little bit of why this would hurt him, but it seems to hurt him even more.
More than you might expect for a demon.
Okay, so remember I mentioned horror a little bit earlier in Giger? So this happens very early on in the manga, but I've noticed that a lot of readers of the manga are maybe younger or not into horror as much, but those of you who remember the Alien franchise, this might look very familiar. This creature is a creature that was from the Alien franchise. It's a xenomorph. If you watch Aliens versus Predator or anything like that, that's what these are. And Sebastian is telling us, oh, I love cats so much. They're completely different from what we have in hell. And this is what they keep for pets in hell. Okay?
It looks identical to a xenomorph.
And if anyone knows how a xenomorph is made, then
Yes.
well,
So
Tells you a lot.
if you're like, wow, that doesn't seem so bad, seriously, go watch Aliens and then come back, because it is pretty bad. You have to find a living creature to use as a host in order to create these things, and they're basically locusts that just destroy things. They also communicate telepathically, they're highly intelligent. So, hell is hardcore, man. Hell is
Give you his
hardcore. This is their pet. This is their equivalent of a puppy. That's terrifying.
but it's clear that Sebastian doesn't seem to care for that kind of a pet. since
No,
he
I
loves
can't blame him
furry
for preferring cats, obviously, because you probably have to feed them a lot less, and you don't have to provide them with living
Life.
hosts that are screaming
And clean up from their acidic blood and their
clean
acidic
up their
saliva.
acidic blood and saliva. Yeah, there's all kinds of mess with these things. So, yeah, this tells us a lot about the place that he comes from, though, and it tells us a lot about other creatures like him. Other creatures like him will keep these things as pets. So what does that say about where he comes from, and maybe why he's not in a big hurry to go back?
And again, also, what does this tell us about Sebastian? If he rejects those creatures as pets and he prefers cuddly, fluffy cats instead, maybe he's not quite the average demon in that
Is he
respect.
like a nerd? Is he like a demon nerd?
Yes.
He's in the mailroom in hell.
Or is he just bored with hell and just doesn't find it useful and just wants to go and do other things? Maybe he's just bored. Maybe he's like the Little Mermaid. But I'm sorry. I'm getting a death glare.
So now we can move on to Shinigami crack theories.
So there's a lot of these. There's actually more than you might expect, because Shinigami, we don't see Shinigami show up all the time.
She's very, limited with what information she gives out. And William even goes on to say that emotions should not be brought into your job at all, period. End of story. And that's apparently what his viewpoint is, and apparently what management's perspective is in the Shinigami world.
Well, and at first we thought that Shinigami were just these, people, these creatures that were just created, and their job was just to reap souls and things like that, until Yana dropped a bomb on us. Do you recall this? Oh yeah, Shinigami are humans that are being punished for committing suicide. That's their job.
So sad.
So, cry.
And so this brings up the question of what, is it every suicide? What counts as a suicide? Is giving yourself up to save the lives of many also considered suicide because it's wasting your life?
What does Yana consider suicide here?
Right.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of, and also we know that suicide is the result of depression, and a lot of times people who commit suicide don't really want to, it's just that they are suffering from mental illness at the time. So we know that this is pretty cruel if you think about it. Like, the more you think about it, the more awful it is.
Right, right.
Especially since suicide is such a big problem in Japan. It just gets creepier and creepier as we get into it. And then this is also something, this picture has been analyzed to death, but this is the chapter cover for chapter 106. But you'll see that we have a skeleton up here with a noose, and then we have a skeleton laying on its back with a razor blade, and we have a skeleton here with a bottle of pills falling down towards them, and then we have one that's just here praying. And so a lot of people have speculated that these are the four core Shinigami in Black Butler. A lot of people say, oh, this is Grell, William, and Ronald. This is how they killed themselves. So this means this is Undertaker. How did he pray himself to death? Well, I mean, and there's a lot of theories about that. There were people during the Black Plague who did refuse food and fasted themselves to death.
Because they thought they deserved it.
Well, because they thought they deserved it, or they thought that it would save their community. And he does wear prayer beads. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of questions.
We don't know what about this act of suicide triggers becoming a Shinigami. Does it have to do with intent? What is it?
But they do mention that they're trying to redeem themselves somehow. And I guess atone for their horrible act of suicide.
Horrible in quotes.
Horrible in quotes.
Is no judgment, and we're
Right.
trying to figure out what is going on here, because that seems a little odd.
Right. But then we move on to Grell's sharp teeth.
Has anyone thought about this? Like, seriously, why does Grell have sharp teeth?
He's Reed's father.
I like that one.
I mean, within Black Butler, she does try to keep it fairly realistic. She doesn't use a ton of anime conventions within the manga. Season 2 went all over the place, but within the manga, and Season 2 isn't canon, I'm sorry, but it's not considered like part of the canon. So, and then Season 1 is only canon up to what, the Curry arc?
Right, the Curry arc.
Like halfway through the Curry arc.
Right, not even the full Curry arc.
Before you have the magic dust that gets put in and turns people into demons for some reason.
Yes, before that part.
So because basically the animators didn't know what was going to go on next, and they're like, well, we'll just make some stuff up. You know, you guys have been in different anime fandoms for a while where that's happened, and it's like, oh.
Right, and they had already introduced angels at that point too, which also are not in the
We
original
haven't seen
manga.
them yet in the manga.
Not yet. Not
Not
yet.
seen anything.
So they had
So
started
we're not
writing
sure.
a new story.
But why does Grell have sharp teeth? Is this something about her method of suicide? Is Grell a shapeshifter? What does this mean? Grell is the only one that we see that is able to change shape. To
Right.
go from, Grell doesn't have sharp teeth when Grell is a butler. Grell's eyes are not Shinigami eyes when Grell is a butler. And then Grell, we see, undergoes this werewolf-style transformation. And then becomes Grell as
we know her, as we know her. And it's interesting because you know that like Undertaker would probably like to be able to shift his eyes.
So you don't have to cover everything
Exactly.
and not see.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be
But
useful.
he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. He puts on this very intricate act in order to not make people question him, not question why he's so pale, or question, you know, why he hides his eyes all the time, which would potentially be very suspicious during the Victorian age.
Well, his whole mortuary seems creepy to us, but to the Victorians, that would have been like a fun house.
That was like an entertainment.
That would have been the most entertaining damn thing in the world. It's just like super entertaining. So people would have just flocked there. He would have been very popular. This was a time period when people would pay money to go walk around in mental institutions where people were not being cared for, to just gawk at people who were being mistreated. So, I mean, this is a very different time period from the way it is now.
Very different.
And there was a theory that was brought up at DragonCon, actually, in regards to this question. The theory being that the characteristics or traits that the Shinigami had in their human lives would carry over to the afterlife as a Shinigami, and then somehow contribute to the kinds of skills that they have in their afterlife. So in this case, if we consider the fact that Grell is transgender, then it would make
Right.
sense that that Grell would be a shapeshifter if their traits, contribute to their skills in the afterlife. So that was an interesting theory.
Yeah, and
as
there
well.
are canon things saying that Grell does consider herself female and does want to transition, but doesn't have the access to...
Once the surgery and everything is available, that's something that she would really like to do.
Yeah, so the irony is that Grell is a shapeshifter, but she can't shapeshift enough. So there's a punishment happening there that we see, perhaps.
With Undertaker, we ask, so where do his scars come from? And we've seen more and more photos revealing like different parts of his body. Recently there was the workout CD that they released where you can listen.
Did you guys see this?
Oh my gosh.
The workout
We
CD
can listen
that was released in Japan?
to Sebastian, Ciel, Undertaker, and Grell walk you through workouts.
It worked out
Sounds hilarious.
But and you see Undertaker's legs.
Right, you can see his calves.
They need to dub this so bad.
Yeah, I know. I would so buy it.
I need this in my life.
Who else would work out to Black Butler?
Exactly. See, this is kind of just polar. But you see that he has scars that run all the way up his legs. And he has scars that go out to his arms. He's got one around his neck. He's got it across his face.
Across his chest? Just
Yeah.
across his chest?
Yeah.
He's a jigsaw puzzle.
So how can
to Stein.
That's a theory as well.
Shinigami be scarred?
From Soul Eater.
How can they be scarred at all? We see that Undertaker actually, cuts up Ronald and Grell on the Campania, and we don't see that they have any scarring
Well,
after
within
that.
just a short time, Grell's back.
Right,
beating up
she's
things
back up,
again.
attacking him again. So I'm imagining that doesn't leave any, terrible marks or anything.
Right, they seem to heal Shinigami.
Is it how he killed himself? If that's the case, I don't know how the heck he did that. That's pretty creative right there.
Maybe he's really jigsaw.
But was he a priest in his human life? We do see that he carries prayer beads with him, and he is very intent on giving Ciel advice a lot. Very cryptic advice, yes. But he does try to push him away from the path that Ciel ends up taking, which is, burning down a house full of children. At one point, Ciel...
You're not pushing hard enough.
Well, and also his Satoba that he carries, these are grave markers for people who have been buried in sacred ground. These are Shinto grave markers. So
yes, they have prayers inscribed
He
on
has
them.
lots of holy symbols around him, so we do have this idea that maybe there's some kind of holiness attached to him, which is kind of mean. Whenever he impales Sebastian, we've got a holy god going against a demon. I don't
But who
know.
doesn't kill the demon,
Yeah.
just to add in more confusion.
I'm
you
just
know.
going to impale you, just to look
Just
at
for
your
fun.
cinematic record and peer around your memories.
So another
Just for fun.
question is, did he reap the current members of the dispatch unit? That's very possible.
How long has he been working? I mean, why don't Grell and William recognize him? Well, why don't Grell and Ronald recognize him at first?
Right. And later on, William and Grell are very much pursuing him, to Germany. They're hunting for him, but they don't intervene during the, the Campania arc, not the Campania arc, the
Germany arc?
no, at the university.
Oh,
Weston Arc. Whenever he's at the Weston Arc, he did have people being killed, but Grell and William didn't intervene. They must have had some clue that Undertaker might be there, because bizarre dolls are popping up left and right, but they don't intervene with it at that point. Why not? More questions.
well, and if Grell and William are pursuing Undertaker, maybe they're doing this because he was their senpai.
Maybe he was. Maybe he was.
And then when Othello shows up now, we haven't seen Grell mention Undertaker at all.
No.
So, and the implication is that Othello is doing some kind of investigation. We don't know if
Yes, and Othello won't tell Grell anything about it, which she's really annoyed
and
by.
so Grell won't tell him anything.
Yep.
So, Kind of like in one of those police movies where you see the FBI coming to investigate a small department. And
They
they're
just
like,
ignore
"We're
it."
not helping you."
Yes, Othello is from the forensics department of the Shinigami Dispatch, apparently.
Yes, interesting.
So then we can get into Undertaker's bizarre dolls. Why is he making them? Is he trying to figure out where Shinigami come from? At one point he talks about getting so bored with doing his job that he just decides to see, well, I always wondered what happened after death. So he messed around, attached some cinematic records of him in a Charlie Chaplin outfit, dancing around, and he's like, wow, look at that, they move. It's amazing.
Well, and that's how we get these bizarre doll horses. And look at how careful he was to tie things over their eyes. I love the horses.
Yes, we have bizarre doll horses.
The major theory,
More of
And the
those.
driver. And the
we
driver.
do,
Death rides a pale horse.
On a ship.
undead horse.
Undead horses on a sinking ship. Look out.
So the
I can't
question
wait to see
is,
that animated. Those horses better be.
most believe that Undertaker's trying to bring Vincent back to life. Why? I don't know. He's very upset that he has nothing, even his bones burned to ash when the Phantomhive Manor burned down.
Can't make a bizarre doll out of ashes.
You really can't. Even he can't, apparently. And that maybe really upsets him. But is this his true goal? Is that what he's really wanting to do? Would that be something he would do? Or is this all part of a larger scheme to overthrow Queen Victoria?
Well, and we see Queen Victoria is super interested in the bizarre doll.
She really is. She wants to know more. She's not terrified of them. She's like,
I mean, I would be too.
I kind of want to see more of these. How
Oh,
good
dear,
are
dear,
they?
dear. And then we have my big good old Bessie.
Honestly, you know.
I named her Anne.
Oh.
But so there's a lot of complication with Madame Red's death because we keep having this brought up. And if you watching the musicals, you saw that we had Licorice, which was basically the story of Madame Red and the whole Jack the Ripper arc. And they did that, and then a rerun. We have Madame Red that keeps popping up in Ciel's memories. We have Madame Red references all over the place. So the implication is that something about what happened with Madame Red is super important. And so we keep coming back to this, and one of the theories around this is this has to do with the idea of suicide and what counts as suicide. If Angelina was going to commit suicide, did Grell interfere and prevent her from killing herself? Did Grell kill her to prevent her from committing suicide? Was it an attempt to prevent her from becoming a Shinigami? And it's important to understand that if Madame Red had not died, if Grell hadn't killed Madame Red, Ciel would have to either kill his aunt,
Right.
good luck
Or-
with that, or have her arrested, where she would have probably been either publicly executed or sent to an asylum. Now at this time, this was a time period about 10 years after the Jack the Ripper killings.
10 full years.
You were still you had a prankster say they were Jack the Ripper, jokingly, and people in a mob gathered and strung the guy up and hung him, just for mentioning that offhandedly, that he was Jack the
So
Ripper.
Angelina's fate would have been very bad had this actually, had it never actually ever come out.
Yes. And if Ciel hadn't had her turned over to the police or put away quietly into an asylum like Bedlam, which was very bad at the time, where she would have been assaulted in a variety of ways, he would have had to lock her up in his house and just never let her leave. That's where the old idea of the mad woman in the attic comes
Like in
from.
Jane Eyre.
Yeah, like in Jane Eyre and things and other writings from the time period. So we have to ask ourselves, was Angelina's murder an act of allegiance or betrayal at the end? We don't know. We do know Grell keeps her jacket and
Right.
carefully stitched it up. And Undertaker even comments on
He
it.
does. He does. He's, very curious about it and wanting to know more and wanting to talk. But of course they're fighting at the time whenever he's having this conversation.
Grell was
So,
having none of that.
of course they're not really talking that much, maybe as much as they probably should.
And Grell was not punished.
Not
for killing
severely.
her.
Not
She just
severely.
had to do some cleaning and wasn't allowed to reap for a little while, and is back out again.
According to the latest book of Circus Art. at
Yeah,
least.
according to that, we haven't really seen any severe punishment happen for Grell.
No. So why is that not
Any-
more terrible? Why are they not punished for that? Is that like, oh, you stepped out of line, get back in there, stop killing people?
Stop killing people. That's
Yeah.
bad.
It's almost like they expect it.
Especially not on the to-die list. And people tend to forget also that the red coat is Madame Red's,
Right.
and that she took it off of her when she died. So it's only because after we see Grell transform into her real form, her natural form, then she takes the red coat, and we kind of just associate that coat with Grell. But
She's wearing a
keeping
token
Angelina's
of dead
coat.
Angelina. And why would she do that? So this also gets into, if they're not going to punish Shinigami for doing these things, how does death actually work? What happens to people who die? What about those who die who aren't on the to-die list? There were a bunch of people, I'm assuming, on the Campania that died that weren't on the to-die list. I believe Grell was one of the people who's killing people who wasn't on the to-die list as well.
Well, and also
That's questionable.
it's important that the Shinigami are supposed to be judging, but the only thing they're judging is whether or not they're supposed to die and they're like, good, it's done, or if they're going to give them some kind of a pass.
Or if they're going to be able to change the world enough that they deserve a pass. And William even says that never really happens, but it's formality for us to have to look at it anyway. So he's pretty much saying the job isn't,
They're
that
not
critical.
sorting people, they're just saying, yep, approved, good, paperwork's done.
Right.
It's really that boring.
Yeah, that also makes you wonder if something like that might happen in the story, since Yana has mentioned that as a possibility in the book through the Shinigami. Could someone get a pass? Has someone gotten a pass before?
What would that mean? When demons steal souls, what does that mean? Does it pull out of like the reincarnation cycle? Is that what's happening? Is that why it's so bad?
Is that what are we leading toward reincarnation?
Is
now?
that a case?
I don't know.
We don't know. What does it mean when a demon devours a soul? That could have a number of
Well, Sebastian's like,
interpretations.
they're neutral and they're divine.
They're a neutral
I
divine
don't know
party.
what that means.
Right.
That's just what he says.
Right, there's a theory that people who die who weren't on the to-die list are immediately reincarnated. So that's a theory as well.
We
But
don't,
we don't know.
And then if someone's going to become a Shinigami, who reaps them? Is that like a special case? They're like, oh, that person's a Shinigami. Do they have a different stamp for that? Do we have
Different stamp.
What happens if Sebastian
Or a
dies?
soul.
Does he get like? Does he show up on the to-die list?
I don't know. Do demons show up?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Will girl tell it? Hey, girl, you're on the to-die list.
Just wanted to give you a heads
Just
up.
thought you would know.
So finally, we can get to Queen Victoria,
Oh my.
Oh my.
who's not nearly as innocent as she looks.
Well, she
most of the
wasn't in
time.
real life.
No, she wasn't. She wasn't. So what are her motivations? As we said before, she shows a very keen interest in Undertaker's bizarre dolls. And we notice the timeline has already been messed up kind of with regard to the mustard gas not supposing to appear until the Great War. And it's showing up in 1896 London. That's way before it needs to. And in the latest chapter, Othello even mentions that the timeline is being messed up. And that's not good. And I'm like, so are they in control of the timeline?
Yeah, because
How
now
did
they
they
have
know?
blood transfusions.
Right, they have blood transfusions
Which is
now.
also very early.
That's not supposed to be happening yet. So we're kind of delving into the realm of sci-fi a little bit.
Well, at this time in real life, people were just taking blood and being like, "What happens if we put this in a dog?" Oh,
Yeah,
that didn't go well.
they would
let's
do
try a
they would
different
do
dog.
public events of let's see if the dog lives after we do this transfusion. 1 out of 4 cases.
We don't know why.
Right, because they did not type blood back then.
No.
There
No.
wasn't even germ theory at this time. So the idea was that if you got sick, it's because you were exposed to like bad air or something
Right.
like that, miasma.
So one of the main questions is, was she responsible for Vincent and Rachel's death? Was it some sort of, was it over some slight that they did or something like that? And if she was, and if Ciel finds out, what is he going to do about it? Because he's technically a watchdog still and has to obey her orders.
Big question right there.
And then we get into Siegland.
Oh, Siegland. Okay, so
I've done a lot of research into the Victorian era, and I will just say that the Queen does not visit your house. If the Queen visits your house, it is because you are a member of the peerage. So you are an earl, you are a lord, you are someone of very high status, and when the Queen comes, you're probably going to have a year's notice, and the reason you get a year's notice is because you have to spend a lot of money to fix up that house and make sure the Queen will have the perfect accommodations, even if she's only staying for a couple of hours.
So you can go back and look at a lot of different accounts of Queen Victoria actually going to stay at people's castles
Estates,
or
their
chateaus or
castles.
estates.
They would make a whole brand new entrance. They would completely destroy rooms and remodel them to make sure she'd have the
She wouldn't just go by
best.
herself.
No.
She would take her entire entourage. So that doesn't just mean
It's like over 100 people.
the Greys and her horsemen.
No.
That means all of her maids, all of her servants. So this could be maybe up to 100 people that would just come with her and travel there together. Her family might come too, so maybe her kids. She did have kids at this time who were around, and grandchildren. So she might travel with everybody.
It's very unusual for her just to pop in and be like, hey, how you
to
doing?
someone's
Siegel?"
flat randomly to an apartment.
But Sieglinde
Like,
is a great
It's a little
chemist.
townhouse.
She's a genius chemist, and she is able to come up with incredible toxins. And she builds herself spider legs, and she can't walk at one point.
If you haven't looked at this, it is amazing. I want someone to cosplay this so hard.
Someone needs to cosplay Sieglinde with
Yes,
spider legs.
yes. But the question is the Queen, what is she looking for? Is she looking for some ultimate weapon, some way of defeating her enemies, who are obviously very active? They have, a battle with tanks in Germany earlier, so what are her
I
goals?
think she might be fishing for information.
And then we have her master of horse, who is John Brown, and
So
he's
fishy.
super suspicious. First of all, he is the person who comforts the Queen the most whenever she is grieving for Prince Albert, who was her royal consort. He may be called Prince, but that's just because he was never...
She never granted him kingship. pretty
Yes.
much. She
he
had
was
that
her
power,
husband.
and she refused to grant it
She
to
didn't want to give up power to him because he was very controlling. He was a little bit William-like, so yeah, he really was. But John Brown is the one who pulls out the Prince Albert puppet and says, "It's okay, Victoria, you'll be fine. Everything will be all right." We get this idea that maybe he knew Prince Albert
Possibly.
in some way.
But she's one of the closest assistants. I mean, he is to Queen Victoria. She trusts him a lot.
He wears these fancy goggles
Everywhere.
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 Never see his eyes.
Never see
He
his
just suddenly
eyes.
arrives in Germany with his horse. And Sebastian's like, wow, did you ride your horse? He's like, no, I would never do that to my horse. And you're like, so how did your horse get there?
How'd
And
you
then
get
he's
to
went
Germany
by,
so
and he
quickly?
just
He
goes
just
back into a
leaves.
bush again, and he's gone.
And they're in a town that's surrounded by cursed forest. It's covered in miasma.
And werewolves.
And werewolves.
Toxic
And he
death.
just shows up, hands a letter, and leaves. And you're like, wow, dude,
You came here to deliver a letter. It was
So-
urgent.
you're quite suspicious.
So
Just
is
saying.
John Brown a Shinigami? Possibly. Possibly.
Well, we know what happens with characters who hide their eyes.
Yeah.
You do indeed. Or wear glasses all the time. Anybody that wears glasses now, I'm suspicious.
I'm suspicious. Come on, those glasses. And finally, want to give a big happy 10th anniversary to Black Butler.
These are just some of the theories, guys. There's so many, and we've tried to cram a bunch into this time, but as you can see, our fandom is rich, our fandom is alive. There's so much that we still have yet to see. We could
Right.
have gone on and on, we had to pare it down. So
This is the poster for the Book of Atlantic that's supposed to be coming out in January,
yes.
which looks amazing.
Look how cool it is.
January
So excited.
21st for the Campania arc to be seen animated.
Fingers crossed for them zombie horses.
Yeah.
And don't forget, if you have not watched the musicals, they are about to come out with a musical for Book of Circus. It looks amazing. This is the poster they have released for it.
Everyone looks
It
amazing.
is gorgeous.
All
So
the characters are
you
just
should
so
definitely check these out.
This is the 4th musical.
beautiful. Right.
And then if you are interested in anything else we have done, this is our WordPress site. We have our Gmail down there. We're going to post up a copy of this panel and our PowerPoint slides so that you guys can read over that. We also have our business cards up front. We're happy to talk with anybody, but thank you everybody for coming. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much.